Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Cup of Joy. I'm your host, Ariana Joy Christie, and I am so glad that you are here. This is a space to inspire, to learn, to grow, and to challenge. Get ready to fill your cup and spread a little joy along the way. Syd Vaughan, owner of 3Well by Syd, registered massage therapist, personal trainer, health and wellness coach, breath facilitator, all the things wellness. Welcome to Your Cup of Joy.
Thanks so much for having me, Ariana.
Of course. I'm so excited that you're here because Syd is a good friend of mine also. So I love what you do, Syd, and I'm so excited to share with everybody everything about wellness and your take on it. But I also just think that you're an amazing person. So I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I feel the same, and it's been such a fun time being able to work through this CrossFit journey with you and, see you excel on your own journey with fitness in the last almost 6 months now, three to 6 months. So that's been really fun.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Oh, well, thank you. I want to start kind of at the beginning.
Cool.
Can you share with us what drew you to wellness, personal training, massage therapy, like your business?
Yeah. So that started when I would say when I was 18. My background when I was a kid was soccer. So I played high level soccer. I always identified with being an athlete. And then I steered away from it because mental health and my own personal journey with my own self-discovery in terms of coming out and being gay, and then also just dealing with depression and anxiety and not really kind of knowing what step to take, that kind of veered me off track in regards to any of the fitness and mindset tools that I use today, as well as breathwork. That kind of brought me back to it. So my journey started really in the industry of health and wellness was because I knew that it was my passion after kind of leaving my soccer career because of my own mental health. And I was blessed to be kind of steered back into this line of work. And I've been in it for the last decade. And it's evolved over time. So it's really cool to have all these different tools and lenses that I can choose from to help the everyday human with what they're dealing with.
I love that so much. It's interesting to me that it's from childhood. That's kind of how you were then, and now it's transformed, obviously, through till now. And kind of speaking about transformation, ever since so I know Syd from the community, but Syd led a breathwork course. And I always joke, that was I say oh, it ruined my life, but it didn't. It was wonderful. But I think that's really what started my transformation, I'll say.
Oh.
And a lot of people who have been following my journey have pointed out to me hey, you're changing, or hey, you're glowing, or you look really happy. And these comments are so interesting to me because I think when you're going through a transformation, you feel it, but it's hard to really actually identify. And so at that point in time, when I would say my transformation started, I was mentally in a very difficult, different space. And I wanted to change. I wanted to go through this transformation. And when you talk about transformation, you talk about it not being, or being a marathon and not being a sprint. So what do you think is the biggest mistake that people make when they're trying to change their lives or kind of start a transformation?
I mean, thank you for also sharing just your vulnerability in really in your transformation, because anybody that wants to, change something in their life, it can feel very overwhelming. And we know that when we're faced with that overwhelm, we stop, because then it's too much. So then we're just we can't do it. So one of the the best places to start is it's literally one change at a time. It's that 1%. And I've stuck by that in my own life. It's that 1% daily. If you can shift one habit and really stick to that, then you can just start to build. It's a building block, right? So that's where that whole, any type of transformation, whether it's with your mindset, whether it's with the physical body, whether it's starting, some type of a new routine, you have to start slow, because really we're in this for the long haul, right? I even say to some of my clients, it's I don't want to have you forever. I mean, of course, some of them I have forever, But again, you do want to see that growth because you know that the people that you've worked with, or whether it's personal, you've instilled these habits that they then become your own subconscious, patterning, just like driving a car. You don't have to think about it when you get in the car
Mm.
and, you put it in drive and you're going to the gym, you know what exit to take. And you're like, how did I get here? It's because it's so programmed into your vessel that it's automatic. And so when we're making changes, or we know we want to get from point A to point B, is it's you got to start small. It's just doing one thing, so that we don't hit that block of overwhelm.
I love that because I think kind of at the beginning of this journey for me too, so often I was like, "Oh, I can't go to the gym because I don't have an hour and a half." That was like my roadblock. It was like, I must have an hour and a half because I need time to drive there. I need to go to a class. A class is probably an hour. And so I'm just not going to go at all.
Yeah, and that's
And for me, like, I need movement to feel good. And I was just letting that block be like, nope, nothing.
totally, and that's where like you don't even end up starting because it seems like way too much. When really,
Yeah.
when it comes to exercise, it's like you only need 10 minutes a day. Or if you can
Yes.
start with 10 minutes, then you build up to 20, then you build up to 30, or you do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. Like we have to simplify things because things can be this simple. No different.
Totally.
Yeah, like, and I mean, I love relating it to fitness because it's the one thing that deeply resonates with me and my life. And
Hmm.
like, I remember when I like was on my own weight loss journey, like way back when, like I was so embarrassed to step foot in a gym. I was so embarrassed, but it was my own perception.
Hmm.
Like it was my own self-judgment. And what I started doing was I started working out at home. And then I built up this confidence to be like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing. And then I would step foot in the gym, but it didn't have to be like 5 days a week. It was okay, just do it one day a week. And then the next day, okay, now it's two. Then it's three,
Yep.
because you start to ease into it. And it doesn't seem so scary. And it also doesn't seem as hard as we always think it's going to be. But you've got to just
Yeah.
pass that roadblock, like you were saying, right?
Totally. And it gets easier and easier, and you're motivated more and more when you go and you realize, oh, I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
Or I would often think, like, oh, it has to be, you know, at the gym. And then when I started, I actually just started walking. Like, I was like, oh, if I can walk 10 minutes a day, like, I'm getting fresh air, I'm getting some sun, I'm getting movement, I feel better, my head is more clear. And then from there, I could kind of push it. But similar to you, I was just scared to enter a gym, which is so silly.
I know.
I wouldn't even let the people give they're like, "Oh, do you want a tour?" I was like, "No." Immediately, "No.
I hear you.
I'll
And
figure it out."
it's so real. And I think that's where like it's so relatable for everybody. And it's like we have to break down these ideas and these conditions around what it has to look like,
Mhm.
because that's the one thing that prevents us from doing anything that is different, right? Because
Yeah.
you're changing, the neural pathways in the brain. You're asking yourself to do something you've never done, so it's gonna feel uncomfortable. You're gonna judge
Mhm.
yourself. You're excuse me, judge yourself. You're gonna feel like you might not succeed. But it's like I was having a conversation the other day, and it's just like, we want to fail. It's like shoot for the failure, because then what you're doing is you're really removing the roadblock of that own
Mhm.
fear. You're removing the roadblock of fear by choosing to fail. And I know that might sound a little bit crazy,
It's so yeah, that's so interesting to me.
but sometimes for me, it's just like, no, no different. You were doing handstand push-ups this morning. I mean, like we were doing it. And it's like,
Yeah.
let's just keep going. See where your limit is.
I often say to myself, like, now, because I feel a little bit more confident to try things, but even when I wasn't, it was like, "What's the worst thing that happens?
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it? Like, okay." I was saying that to Renee this morning, like, "Oh, we were looking at what the workout is tomorrow, should we go?" And I was like, "Who cares? Like, if we suck at it or we don't wanna do it, like, we don't.
And
Like, just go and try."
you learn something from it. And you also
You
then
do.
you get to learn where your weaknesses are, you get to learn where your strengths are, and you're also building your own self-confidence, your own character. Like you're learning so much about yourself, and that's where we can really see how important community is, and how
Yes.
important it is to, to have that support group and that environment around you to like push you a
Mhm.
little bit more, or ask you where you've been, or to be like, hey, Did you get out for a walk today?
Hmm.
Hey, did you meditate today? Hey, like, you want to go to the gym? I know
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who asked me to go to the gym at like 9 p.m. on a Saturday. That seems to be the bar workout now. Mariana.
It's my favorite. My
That's
favorite.
great.
Like, it's to me combined, I love to like kill two birds with one stone, multitask, however you want to say it. Like, I love when you can do multiple things at once. Sarah and I used to say this all the time because in the early days of motherhood, we'd go to Costco together because that was like our time we got together. And it was like, okay, now my social cup is full.
Yeah.
I did something productive and there's food in my house. Like, win win.
Yeah, and it's the best. And that's too when you see like new moms doing, all of the, the babies and walking. It's like it's so great because you get to do like kill two birds with one stone. Like you get to have that community and connection, but then you're
Hmm.
also moving your body.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so Nate,
I love it, and you just overall feel so much better. So I love when it can be a social thing too, and that all contributes to self-care and mental health and just ultimately feeling good,
yeah.
which I think sometimes we easily forget we put ourselves last. It's so wild that like human nature would say like take care of yourself, but it's so easy to put yourself last.
And I mean,
It's just wild.
we have to find that like that harmony between prioritizing, of course, like I mean I'm not a mother, but like prioritizing your kids and the responsibilities that you have, but you
Mhm,
have to have that support system and also ask for help when you need it. And it's like
mhm,
it takes the village, and I know you've spoken on that before. It's like you
mhm.
don't do everything on your own. It's like
No,
it's your friends, your family, like your community that helps you get what you need to get done mentally, most emotionally and physically, right? And
totally.
yeah, it's super important.
Yeah, and I always say like you can't fill from an empty cup. Like if you have nothing left to give, you're no good to anyone else.
Yeah.
So your intention might be that you want to be there for them, but you can't be if you're not there for yourself.
Yeah. And so like when it's like filling your own cup, it's like really switching that mentality around how it's like if I actually take 2 minutes, no different than 10 minutes of exercise, if I take
Mhm.
that 2 minutes to be very intentional and sit in stillness or do some breathing or go for a walk, that you're filling your cup and you're then able to show up so
Yes.
much more clear, you're patient, like
Mhm.
you're able to actually be in the moment because
You
like
can be so much more intentional that way when your mind is clear.
yeah, very much so.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to dive into breath work.
Cool.
Um, I mentioned like my transition, how that was kind of or transformation, I guess, how it was initiated by breath work.
Mhm.
And I want you to explain a little bit, like kind of Cole's notes, what is breath work? Because when I said yes to like, oh yeah, sure, I'll come to breath work, my initial reaction or thought was like, oh, it's gonna be like a gentle yoga. Like I'm gonna get to breathe for an hour and a half, maybe stretch a little bit and just like relax. And that is not really the case. It's so much deeper than that. So share with us what breath work is.
I know your experience was definitely it took you by surprise, but
Yeah.
I was really grateful that you were able to come and you came with an open mind. And I think too when we're trying something new or we've never taken time to be in stillness, that can be hard for a lot of people. So when we look at like what
Yeah.
breath work is, it's really that intentional state shift. We're taking the time to be intentional with our breath, so we are breathing. And with breath work, depending like on what style of breath work you're doing, you can do more down regulating breath work or up regulating breath work. And that's where Cole's notes on the nervous system, you've got that down regulation, which is that more rest and digest, like really like longer exhales and allowing for that integration. And you feel like heavy in the body and like more calm. And then you've got that sympathetic, like more of that upregulated breathing, whereas it's, you'll get that if you're in a workout or you're breathing heavy or like, you've got a lot on your agenda, like things are going and you're pop, 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 pop. And the
Mhm.
heart rate's high. That's more of that like sympathetic charge. So with breath work, what we're doing is we're shifting state. It's the gateway to our nervous system. And when we can be intentional with the breath, we're actually then able to tune in and check in with how we are actually being and existing.
Mhm.
So with breath work, like you can take it, from like the basics of 2 minutes, doing like a little meditation, doing some box breathing. But then when we get into more of the sympathetic, upregulating breath work, more circular breaths, um, that's where we start to get into more of this kind of like deeper transformational state, which is what you experienced, where we can actually start to move some of this stuck, stagnant energy that's actually residing in our nervous system. And that's where we start to see with breath work how it can be so transformational because we're actually shifting our energy, we're shifting our being, and we're almost like recalibrating because we're
Mm-hmm.
releasing whatever like has been stuck in our backpack, and we don't have to actually know what it is. The body will speak for itself. And the beauty with breath work, especially when like, if we're dealing with a lot of stress, or we've got chronic pain, or there's just been like habits and patterns showing up in the same way, different form, there's something that we're either not learning or we're not able to kind of break through. So with breath work, it's turning it inside. Like you reflect, like your internal reflects your external.
Mm-hmm.
And with breath work, it's that release of the kettle. If your kettle is like right at the top and it's just about to like burst, breath work is that safe container for you to express and for you to feel and for you to really build this relationship with yourself from a deeper lens of compassion and love and grace. So, we can actually show up like as our best. Because
Mm-hmm.
when we're carrying so much load, like, and we're not really able to sit with ourselves, that's where we just start putting everything on everyone else, or why is this happening to me, or we're looking at it from the lens of fear as opposed to like faith and gratitude and love,
Mm-hmm.
because we haven't addressed what's on the inside. So I mean, I'm kind of going off on a tangent right now,
No.
but it's that gateway for us to actually sit with the seat of our own soul, our own nervous system, so that we can show up and be better moms, friends, co-workers, partners, like, and really just build connection and love, because that's what it all comes back to. As it's like,
Totally.
you know, you can say I love you, but when was the last time you looked in the mirror and you said I love you?
Yeah, truthfully.
Yeah.
It's wild to me. And it's interesting to me that you said when you're stuck,
Mhm.
because for so long, when I was just in this really awful place, I didn't even know what was going on with me. Like, I didn't know why I was upset or why I didn't feel myself.
Mm.
I think part of it is like you're in an in between stage after you have kids. Like, you're not really considered postpartum anymore, but you don't feel like yourself. I was just really like so stuck. And I remember saying to Mike too, like, I'm stuck. But like stuck from what I didn't even know. So now that I'm reflecting back on that, that is so interesting to me that you use that word.
Yeah, and like being stuck, it's like you can kind of feel like, okay, I don't really know what the next step is. We always think that it's something outside of us. But that's where
Mm,
like you go back to the basics of just meditation and just being still, just being
mhm.
quiet. Because there's so much noise in the world, right?
So much.
Like noise with kids, noise with friends, noise with what we've got to do, noise with the TV, noise with everybody's opinions. But it's like, when do we actually like take a moment to quiet the noise and be with
Mhm.
the body? We spend so much time in our heads,
So much.
cerebralizing everything, that
Yeah.
we've actually got to like drop into the heart and be in the body.
Hmm. I
Because
love
when
that.
you can drop into the heart and be in the body, that's when we can really just kind of come into our own feelings and our intuition, and really being like, oh, I feel super stressed. Like my
Mhm.
heart rate's up, or I'm like, oh no, I feel okay. Instead of trying to muscle it through your brain.
Mhm.
It's like, hold on, just take a pause. How do you actually feel? How does this situation feel to me? When I'm actually
Yeah.
on my own, how do I feel?
Yeah. And for someone who is feeling stuck and is who like me, who is kind of overcompensating by keeping busy and doing a million things, you don't even give yourself the time to think about reflecting. Like, I just never would think about anything because I was always filling my calendar with things. It was like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I still do that.
And I mean, listen, and I appreciate you bringing that up because like I'm at fault for it too in my own life. Like we do try to distract ourselves from the things we don't want to look at. And
Yeah.
it's and the thing is you can say, listen, I don't want to deal with that or what came up or what emotions coming up. But what happens is when we're constantly like kind of being hit, like we're moving through life, like things are going to happen, right? Guy on the street is going to like, he's driving in front of you, cuts you off, or woman, whatever. I'm not going to be biased on this one, but like you get cut off and you react.
Immediately.
Okay. But what if you could respond? And what if that person cutting you off while you're driving, you could just be like, that's okay. You can then respond. And with breath, when we can instill
Hmm.
a really good practice of breath work, we then learn how to recognize how we're feeling, and then we can elicit a response instead of a reaction.
Hmm.
And when we can elicit a response, we're really becoming more present with how we're feeling and we're coming into the body. When we react, boom, you're just triggered because that kettle is so full, you don't even know why you're reacting.
That's so true.
When really, if there's just maybe some things in the body or that we've been holding on to, or some feelings that we haven't given ourselves that space to express,
Hmm.
it's gonna bleed out in other areas. So it's almost like going to a breathwork class or, seeking someone for like a session, whether it's in group or one-on-one, it's like your opportunity to just kind of like clear out the system, see what's
Hmm.
going on, giving yourself permission to see your own self.
I love that.
Yeah, giving yourself permission to really just be,
Yeah.
because that's all that matters is it's that present moment. And listen, like we're going to go from being in the present to then being in the future to then having to do this. But if we can take, you know, whether it's once every, 3 times a day, to just like have a 2-minute pause, set a timer on your phone. Like that is literally, 9 a.m., lunchtime, and then like 5 p.m. And for 1 minute, you just stop and you just take a breath in, and then you let that exhale be as long as it can, and you do that for the length of the timer. Boom, and then you move on.
Hmm.
Because what if, just an idea, what if in those moments of checking in with yourself daily, you were then able to start to shift your state from being, let's say, very reactionary, whether it's things that are triggering you, to then being like, oh, right, I have my timer check in.
Hmm.
Oh, now I can, like, that I actually feel good. I feel more in my body. I feel a little bit more calm. So then that's like, there's the ripple effect of that.
Yeah.
Any
For sure.
any style of breath work is going to shift your state, whether it's going to like upregulate you when you really get into that like circular breath and you're feeling it and it's intense, or you're just coming down and you're like, oh, okay, I feel calm. Most of us
Mhm.
might want to be a little bit more on the calm side.
That's fair. A
Yeah.
fair thing to say because I am a reactor. Like I feel things big and I am not scared to show that. Like I always react, but sometimes I feel like I need to maybe like think about it first before reacting. So that is a great way to
Mhm.
to practice that.
Yeah, and it's like even not having to think about it, just pause. Like just
Mm,
before the reaction or before the response, because the reaction
yeah.
is going to come like because you're just like boom, I'm just going to fire it right off.
Yeah.
Take the pause and then respond,
Mm,
because I could maybe guarantee that the response might have a little bit more insight and clarity to actually what you want to say, instead of having to backpedal
yeah.
and be like, "Ooh, shouldn't have done that."
Definitely.
No different than
I
going to
think
the gym. No different than like starting kind of that 1%, whether it's walking, getting to the gym, starting to move, and doing a new habit.
mhm.
When we start looking at the nervous system, we're shifting states. So if we're constantly living in this like really sympathetic place, we don't actually have the capacity
Yeah.
to take on more because we're so spent.
Yeah.
But when we can build capacity through breath work and actually like give ourselves some space, that's where we're able to actually like, oh, respond because we have capacity. So you're just building capacity in your nervous system and allowing whatever's like, kind of come at you throughout the years, whether it's, like, any sort of events that could have altered your state that maybe were not worked through that are then going to be held in the body. The body keeps score, the body knows.
Hmm.
We can start to move that and create space. And then that's where we start to see, less disease, less pain, more joy.
Hmm. I love that.
Mhm.
So for someone who's maybe thinking about breath work but is a little bit nervous or doesn't know like where to attend something like that or anything like that, what are some steps that they could take maybe before taking that leap?
Yeah, I starting your own practice. And I mean, that could be as easy as like a box breathing technique. And with that one, I mean, it's one that everyone or most people know. Um, in the morning, in the evening, honestly, I say to anybody, it's whatever time you have. You choose
Mm,
what works best for you in your life, right? Um,
yep.
and with the box breath, you could do 5 rounds of this. You inhale for a count of 4, and you can visualize this. Pause at the top for a count of 4. Exhale for the count of 4, and pause at the bottom. And what this is going to do is this is just going to allow our bodies to start to like slow down. It's going to allow our breath to slow down, slowing down our heart rate, slowing down, um, just that breathing rate, so we can transition into that more parasympathetic, like softer state. And I would say the timer technique for me, honestly, Ariana, it's been the most helpful. Is 2 minutes. I set my timer because what that does is that creates a nice container for me to know that I don't have to think about anything before or after that 2 minutes,
Mm, yeah.
right? That I know that I've got 2 minutes. Right when that alarm goes off, boom, I'm done. Okay,
Hmm.
let's do the breathing technique.
Okay.
Okay,
I love that so much because I overthink everything when I go to yoga. I'm thinking like that's why I don't like it because my brain is just going. But I think 2 minutes is so digestible to
yeah,
say like, okay, for 2 minutes, I'm not thinking anything. Like clear my mind. All I'm thinking of is the breath.
yeah. It's Syd's timer technique. That's all you've got to do. You set that timer for 2 minutes, and then you already know when that goes off. Boom, you've been done. Okay, you ready?
I love that. Yeah.
Okay, just get nice and comfy in the chair. And I mean, like
Okay.
maybe your viewers can do this too. I mean, like if anybody's driving, keep your eyes open,
Yeah.
or like pause.
But everybody participate.
Yeah. So just take a breath, just like check in with yourself right now. Just kind of you're seated in the chair, maybe you're standing. Eyes can be closed or open. We'll close the eyes. Good. And just take a breath in. Just check in, feeling the belly and the ribs and the chest expand. And then just exhale and let the whole body just soften. Good. And just do that one more time. Inhaling belly, ribs, and chest, and then just slow exhale, just feeling the softness move through the chest, the ribs, into the belly. And so we're going to inhale for a count of 4. Breath in through the nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale through your nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. And then hold 2, 3, 4. And then just slowly open your eyes, take a breath.
I already feel more relaxed.
Yeah, it's like breath is it's one of the tools that you don't have an excuse for.
True. Like what is the roadblock?
Like I mean like you're breathing.
You have to breathe to live anyway.
It's just about bringing the intention and the
Hmm.
conscious direction to your breath with how you want to show up. And the reason why I wanted you to breathe through your nose is because when we breathe through our nose, I mean, then there's a little bit more research on nasal breathing versus mouth breathing, especially when we're looking at training and oxygen uptake. Um, When we nasal breathe, we're going to really start to stimulate a little bit more of that vagus tone and like transitioning into that parasympathetic state, which is really going to help you feel a little bit more calm. That kind of like digestion starts to settle in, and that like softness in the body. And just when we breathe through our nose, like we're just getting that better digestion of oxygen coming into our cells and our fascia and our body.
That's
I
amazing.
mean, yeah.
Well, thank you for guiding us through that. I love it.
So,
What do you think are some signs maybe that someone might benefit from incorporating breath work into their life or routine?
I mean, I would definitely say, like, if you're someone who has been feeling like you spend a lot of your time in your brain, you overthink everything, right? And you're not actually feeling yourself in your body, or you're feeling like there's that little bit of a disconnect from like mind and
Mm,
body. Um, Breathwork is a fabulous tool, but truthfully, it's for everyone.
mm,
It's for everyone. Um, if you've got stressors going on in your life, um, whatever that may be, mentally, emotional, physical, you know, even if you're training, post training, it's a fabulous way to downregulate the nervous system after being in a very sympathetic state with exercise.
yeah.
When you start your day, we wake up, because stress, gets us out of bed. Stress is good. We do want stress in our life, but
Mm,
we want to not be in a state of stress that is detrimental to our health,
mm,
which is why we want to be able to move in and out of high stress to like kind of more of that restful state. We want to be able to like wake up in the morning, start our day, then you're going to come down, you're going to come up. But it's anyone that's feeling, maybe like there's something that they either want to change in their life, if they're feeling like something's not working, or they're feeling just too overwhelmed, their body's feeling tight. um, it's like you're thinking about the thousand things that you have to do on the to-do
mhm,
list. Really start with breath. Like you'll recognize that the mind will start to quiet, and
mm,
with meditation, most people are like, well, I'm doing it wrong. I keep thinking about everything. No, you're
yeah.
actually doing it right.
Hmm.
You're doing it right, because
Interesting.
meditation is a practice no different than learning how to do a squat or learning how to do a handstand push-up.
Okay.
You're not going to get it right the first time. And you're going to have to learn along the way that there's different cues and techniques that you're going to have to do to perform an exercise properly. No different
Hmm.
than when you're meditating, you're going to have to witness all of the thoughts that your brain is going to experience and have. And then you're going to be like, okay, I see you. Thank you. Oh, I'm going to go back to my breath. I'm going to witness the thought again. Okay. And I'm going to go back to my breath. And as you do that, as you practice being intentional and conscious with your breath, the noise will slowly start to decrease.
Hmm.
The volume will turn down.
Okay, because I will say, like, I totally gave up on meditation because I was like, oh, I'm so shit at it. All I do is think about a million things. It makes me feel like crap. So maybe I'm the problem.
I would challenge you to do 1 week and
Okay.
start with the 2-minute timer technique.
Yeah.
Just be with that breath. And you know what? You could sit there and do a box breath technique and the whole time be like, I feel nothing. I thought about everything I had to do. Then I would say, great. Like, but what you did was you took action and you did the thing, even though it felt like you didn't do it right.
Hmm.
The mind will get quiet as we bring more attention to our breath. Because if you haven't built a relationship with your breath or your body, you're just like you're going out for coffee for the first, like you got like you're dating yourself. You got to learn to be like, hey,
That's true.
how do you how do you feel, like how do I get to kind of witness you? Are you like really stressed, or are you like really chill? Like you're building a relationship with yourself when you are building a breathwork practice.
Wow.
Yeah. And that
That hits me so hard because it's true. Like, I hate being alone. I can't be
Mm.
alone, that I'm in my thoughts. I don't like to like that to me is like so terrifying and scary. And I think that's why I just was like, "Oh, I'm not good at meditating. I don't like it."
Mm.
Because I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. But it's so interesting to me like you're right. Like I need to just chill and be okay with being alone sometimes.
Well, and that's where then I would say, like, my question to you with that would be is, what is it that you don't want to sit with if you're already aware of the fact that you don't want to be alone with your thoughts,
Yeah,
right? Because sometimes
totally.
it's we're keeping ourselves busy because there's actually things we don't want to feel, because when we have to feel, we
Yeah.
have to be vulnerable, and when we're vulnerable we feel like, maybe a little bit more fragile or delicate,
Mhm.
like, or we're scared that we might get hurt, or we're
Mhm.
actually, we're uncertain of what the feeling's going to be with what it might bring up. But the thing is that emotion is not going to last for long.
Mm.
The emotion is just going to move through us, and then it's just our brain that's going to continue to tell us the story.
Mm.
We just need to allow ourselves to feel through the emotion and let it process, let it pass, and then we can continue on.
Hmm. Well, you're inspiring me at least to be a little bit more intentional about alone time.
Ah, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Um, I want to talk a little bit about showing ourselves grace because I know you talk about that.
Yeah.
As a mom, especially, like I find it very difficult to be gracious with myself. I often like preach to others, like, love yourself, go easy on yourself. Like I would never tell anybody else the things that I tell myself because I'm so hard on myself. And I think that that's just kind of how I am, I guess. I often like feel guilty or hold myself to like extremely high standards. I don't know why. How do you personally show yourself grace?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for me, the biggest teacher has been allowing myself to love myself in the most vulnerable moments. And in those moments where I might be feeling like the negative self-talk is coming into play, or I might be feeling like I'm a little bit behind, or I'm starting to feel kind of like I'm not doing enough. I should be doing this. When all those kind of should start coming in, or it's in those moments of like allowing myself to sit in like really vulnerable places with my own self, that I've really learned to give myself the grace to be in that. And I think giving myself grace has been building a better relationship with like my soul, with me, through
I love
meditation, and being with God and source and the universe, and really just trusting that like life is happening for me. And it's in those
that.
hard times when I can pause and really just trust and have faith, instead of looking at, life from the glass half empty, and this is happening to me, it's happening for me. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
How do you then coach your clients on this to be more gracious to themselves?
Oof, great question. I think again, it comes back to like 1%. If you can catch yourself, throughout the day, if you have one negative thought and you're like, ah, Syd, you're such an idiot. Pause, reframe it. If you can have that
Mm,
moment when you can be aware of the thought, or aware of the thing or the action that you've done, where you can see yourself like self-sabotaging or being very self-critical to yourself, if you can have that moment where you can then reframe it and say, listen, I love you, thank you, I'm sorry.
mhm,
That's what I try to coach with my clients, is that like when you can make just that one little shift of grace, and
mhm.
it's really just, again, it comes back to love. It comes back to
Yeah,
just loving yourself, like treat others how you want to be treated, right? If I'm going to
totally.
lend my hand out to you and be there if you're in a very, fragile, emotional, like state, I need to lend that hand to myself.
Mhm.
So I feel like it really comes by like, if we say so much about, wanting to, like be there and show up, and we say all these positive things and do these things for, show up for other people, but it's like we don't actually show up for ourselves. um,
Hmm.
and doing that can be in like some of the smallest ways, where it's really just, whether it's an affirmation, or it's giving yourself that grace if you've done something, forgiving yourself, being
Yeah.
able to allow yourself to be vulnerable, loving yourself through the mess. Love yourself through the mess,
Hmm.
because life gets messy, life gets hard. But like, why would we want to make it harder? Why would we want to make it harder on ourselves when we're really
Hmm.
just also here on our journey, navigating it in any way that we can? Like, no one's given us this itinerary or rule book. We're learning as we go. And so,
Totally.
yeah, it's just that 1% shift a thought,
I love that.
or just literally take a look in the mirror in the morning. And before you say I love you to somebody else, like, say I love you to you, and really start to build that relationship.
And believe it. Like, I love that you're talking about affirmations because I used to think it was so like cheesy or silly or whatever. And then I started doing them with my kids. We have like a box of
Amazing.
cards and they're all these affirmations. And reading them to the kids and the kids saying them has been so powerful. And then, like, my daughter's 2, and every night before bed, we say, I am strong, I am brave, I am kind, I am loved, I am powerful, I can do anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, listening to her say, I don't even have to cue it anymore. She just says it and she fully believes it. When she's saying I'm strong, like she's flexing in the mirror.
Yes.
And I'm like, hell yeah, girl. Like you are. And like I can do anything. I'm like, yes, you can literally do anything.
Yes.
And I think the power of just saying those things every day has literally taught my kids that those things are true and they do love themselves. And as somebody who's an adult who's lived a lot of life and maybe not believed that throughout your life, it's harder to retrain yourself now as an adult than it is to teach a child that. But I am like constantly learning from them, like, this is true for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you do that with the kiddos, because their brains are like so malleable at this point. And that
Hmm.
it really does come down to like your belief. Like,
Totally.
you are what you think. If you say you can't, you won't.
True.
If you say you can, you will. You might not know how, but you will. But the most important relationship is that relationship with the self, is in loving yourself, believing that you are beautiful, you are strong, you are brave, you are kind.
Hmm.
Like the I am, and it's feeling into that, because that is vibration, that is energy,
Hmm.
that is of the frequency of love. And then, I mean, that's a whole other conversation
Yeah.
that we don't need to get into today. But again, it comes back to the frequency of love. And like, when we can vibrate and resonate on that frequency of love and really be in alignment with ourselves, like, that's that's it. Like, it just comes back
Yeah.
to love. And so just being able to instill that with the kiddos, with the affirmations in the morning or in the evening, like, you're really building such a good solid foundation for their, like, their character and who they're going to show up as in this world. So I
Hmm.
love that so much.
I agree. And now I'm realizing like I just need to do that to for myself too. Like, it's so important for me to instill that in them, but like I would never say that to myself?
Mm,
So I think for people listening too, like give yourself a compliment every day this week.
yes. Like,
See how you feel.
and it's not about being selfish,
Hmm.
right? Like, it's not selfish to take the time to do for you. It's not,
Totally.
it's not cocky or too egotistical to speak those positive affirmations to yourself. Really what it
Hmm.
is it's you're shifting your belief. And we all have a belief system. But
Hmm.
I would then ask you, like, where did your belief system come from?
Hmm.
Like, who formed those beliefs? Is that your belief, or did that come from somewhere else? Like, you have the ability to accept or reject whatever it is that's coming in to your mind,
True.
right? And then it
Yeah.
comes into that subconscious, and our body's just that physical vessel that is the result of how we think,
Hmm.
right? So,
Totally.
yeah, so the affirmations are a great, great way. And I mean, I've got my big whiteboard in my bedroom, and I've got like 3 pieces of paper right now that I'm working through. with affirmations that I wake up in the morning and it's right there. It's in front of my face. So even if you
Oh,
put this on your mirror or on like the back of your door, somewhere that it's going to be visible to you, that you can't be blind to not seeing it. And then you just state it, because it's, a new habit formed is repetition.
yeah.
It's all repetition.
That's such a good exercise. Okay, I'm going to start
I love this.
doing that. I'm
Yeah.
going to compliment myself once a day. See how I feel.
And breathe, feel into
And
it,
breathe.
right?
Yes.
And it's going to be uncomfortable at first, because like
Mhm.
if you're saying something to yourself that you don't actually believe, you're going to feel a disconnect.
Totally.
So you just have to trust the process with that the more that you do it, you're going to actually feel and believe it and start to become it and actually show up as that,
Hmm.
because again, it's
Okay.
in your biology.
I'll report back.
Please. Well, I love you.
Yeah, I will for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing with us, Syd. To end, I usually do some fun rapid fire. Is that okay with you?
Hey, let's go. I have no idea what you're going to ask me, but
Okay.
let's go.
Morning or nighttime workouts?
Ooh, morning.
One book that you always recommend to people,
Ooh.
or one that just comes top of mind when you think like, oh, a book that you liked.
I mean, I really enjoyed Atomic Habits. I don't know why that one's coming to mind, but it was a great one in terms of, and I think just with topic of conversation today with understanding more about how to build habits and like the psychology behind it. That one's a really good one.
Yeah, that resonates so well with this
Mhm.
conversation. If you could go anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would you go?
Honestly, Bali came to mind.
Sick.
Yeah.
And one wellness practice that you can't live without.
Oof. Breathwork.
Love it.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Syd. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? Share that with the
Amazing.
listeners.
So, I mean, you can find me on Instagram at Syd Vaughan. I'm in Guelph, so I do virtual, in-person group, and virtual breath sessions. And you can find me at my location in Guelph. Send me an email at info@threewellbysyd.com. And that's where I see patients for massage, fascial stretch therapy, Reiki, that whole toolkit of tools I've got in my toolbox.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ariana.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Cup of Joy. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. And if this episode resonated with you, or if you've been loving this show, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are listening. Your support helps the podcast grow, it helps it reach more people, and it means the absolute world to me. So keep filling your cup with joy, and I will see you next week.